All right, so we've got a really interesting one for you all today. It's this website called the Spiritual Seek, and it's been getting some buzz.
Yeah, I've seen it pop up a few times myself.
It's a it's got a whole bunch of personality tests. Some of them, like the classics, but then some that are a little more, well,
It's
unique.
a little more out there, yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And it's all tied in with this sort of spiritual angle, which I'm really curious to dig into.
That's definitely a unique combination.
So just to give you a taste, they've got tests for spiritual awareness, spiritual awakening. Then there's this one called the Great Personality Test, emotional intelligence, logical intelligence. They've even got one for youth wisdom and mental age. Oh, and there's an impossible quiz too.
That last one sounds like a challenge.
Right. I'm kind of tempted to try it myself, actually.
What really strikes me about this site is how it tries to blend traditional psychology with this more spiritual approach.
Yeah.
It's like they're not just interested in who you are, but also where you might be headed on this whole journey of self-discovery.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Like, it's not just about labeling yourself, it's about understanding your potential for growth.
Exactly. It's a really interesting concept.
All right, so let's dive into some of these tests. Right off the bat, we've got these two that seem pretty connected, awareness and awakening. I'm curious, what's the difference here?
Well, the site defines awareness as basically expanding your perception. It's about moving beyond that sort of black and white view of the world and seeing things in a more holistic way.
So, like, being more in tune with your surroundings, noticing things you might have missed before.
Yeah, exactly. Think of it like this. You're at a party, you're focused on your conversation. Someone with heightened awareness might be picking up on those subtle shifts in the mood, the body language of people across the room, the music, like almost a felt sensation instead of just background noise.
I like that. That's a great example. So it's not just about what you're consciously paying attention to, but kind of absorbing all these different layers of information, both internal and external.
Right. And then you've got awakening, which they describe as, well, a much deeper shift in consciousness. It's about going beyond the ego, beyond the limitations of the material world, and connecting with something, well, bigger than yourself.
Okay, so it's like taking that expanded awareness and then using it to tap into a deeper level of understanding.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're pretty clear that it's a very individual journey.
Hmm.
It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
All right, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I'm really curious to see how they even attempt to measure these things. It seems pretty complex.
I agree. It'll be interesting to see how they translate those concepts into a test format.
Speaking of unique, let's move on to this great personality test. They're claiming it's a step above your typical personality test. What's the deal with that?
Well, from what I've gathered, it's way longer than your average personality quiz.
Oh, how long are we talking?
It's got 65 questions, for starters.
Wow, okay, that's quite a commitment.
Yeah, and each question has 5 possible answers, so it's not just a simple yes or no situation.
So it sounds like they're really trying to go for a more nuanced approach here.
Yeah, exactly. They're also trying to address this common complaint about personality tests. The idea that they're too simplistic, they try to put you in a box. And their solution is this, well, this self-calibrating feature.
Okay, that sounds intriguing, but I'm not totally sure I follow.
It's kind of hard to explain without actually seeing the test itself.
Yeah, no worries.
But essentially, it sounds like the test actually adapts based on your answers as you go along.
Oh, interesting.
Like it might start with some general questions, but then depending on how you answer those, it branches out, goes deeper into specific areas.
So it's like having a conversation with the test itself.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It's like those personalized learning algorithms they use in online education.
Makes sense. So it's not just spitting out a predetermined result based on a formula. It's actually, well, like you said, adapting to how you're responding.
Right. It's trying to create a more personalized, more accurate picture of your personality.
Yeah. That is really interesting.
They also mentioned drawing inspiration from both the Big Five model and the Myers-Briggs type indicator. Those are 2 pretty popular frameworks for understanding personality.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of those.
Big Five focuses on those 5 broad traits, openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, things like that. And then MBTI categorizes people into those 16 distinct personality types.
So it sounds like they're trying to combine the best of both worlds here, create a really comprehensive assessment.
Seems like they're aiming for that, yeah.
All right, let's move on to the emotional and logical intelligence tests. Those are pretty classic measures.
Yeah, you see those everywhere.
So what's the spiritual seek's take on these?
Well, it's interesting because they do offer a pretty standard logical intelligence test, focuses on problem-solving skills, all that. But they also seem to kind of, well, critique this whole societal overemphasis on logic.
Okay, so they're not just saying logic is bad, they're just saying maybe we focus on it too much.
Exactly. They point out that we tend to underestimate the importance of emotional intelligence.
So it's not just about being book smart, it's about understanding and managing your emotions effectively.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm hearing more and more about emotional intelligence these days. Seems like people are finally starting to recognize how important it is.
Absolutely. And they emphasize that their emotional intelligence test digs into those key aspects like self-awareness, how well you regulate your emotions, your ability to motivate yourself, empathize with others, and of course your social skills.
It makes sense. We've all known people who are, brilliant in some ways, but just really struggle with relationships or make impulsive decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And the site even goes so far as to say that a lack of emotional intelligence can be, well, a real obstacle in personal relationships and even career advancement.
That's a good point. All right, so now we come to these two tests that really caught my eye. The youth wisdom test and the mental age test. I mean, a wisdom test designed for young people. That's pretty unique, right?
It's definitely a unique concept.
And what exactly does mental age even mean?
So with the youth wisdom test, they're really exploring this idea that wisdom is distinct from knowledge or intelligence. It's not just about how much you know, it's about how you apply that knowledge to life, how well you understand human nature.
So, it's more than just knowing facts. It's about having that deeper understanding of the world and yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And what about the mental age test?
Well, that one seems to be about assessing your mindset and attitude towards life. The idea is that your mental age can be totally different from your actual, chronological age.
Yeah, I guess we all know people who seem really young at heart no matter how old they are.
Exactly.
So it's about how old you feel mentally, not just physically.
Mm-hmm. And the psych suggests that mental age can be influenced by all sorts of things. Your outlook on life, your experiences, your willingness to learn and grow.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Like they're challenging that traditional notion of age being this limiting factor when it comes to our mental agility and capacity for wisdom.
That's a really interesting point. It's like they're saying your mindset is what really matters.
Exactly.
Okay, and then there's the impossible quiz. I got to ask, what's the deal with that? It sounds like a real challenge.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
What we know so far is that it's structured as 8 levels, each with some underlying logic that you got to uncover. And get this, the reward for cracking the code is a free, full personality test.
Wow, talk about high stakes.
Right. Makes you wonder just how tricky those levels must be.
As we're going through all this, I'm really starting to get a sense of the overall vibe of this site. It feels like they're really trying to push the boundaries of traditional self-assessment.
I agree.
And then weaving in this spiritual element, which is something you don't often see on, your typical personality test website.
Yeah, and it's not just a superficial thing either. They're really trying to make it a core part of the experience.
Exactly. It feels like they're really passionate about promoting self-discovery and personal growth, and they're using this really eclectic mix of tools and concepts to do it.
It's definitely not your average personality test website, that's for sure.
All right, so we've had a little taste of what the Spiritual Seek is all about, but trust me, there's a lot more to explore.
Oh yeah, we've only just scratched the surface.
So stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive even deeper into this fascinating world of self-discovery and spiritual exploration.
I can't wait. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Spiritual Seek.
All right, so we've got a taste of all the different tests they have on there. What I'm finding really interesting is how they've actually, presented the tests themselves.
Oh yeah.
It's not just like a bunch of multiple choice questions, They've really put some thought into making them, unique and engaging.
Absolutely. They're not just aiming to, categorize you or anything. It's more like they want to spark some reflection, maybe even challenge some assumptions you might have about yourself.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Like, let's take that spiritual awareness test, for example. They actually claim it's pretty rare to find a test like this online.
Why is that?
Well, they suggest that, mainstream psychology tends to kind of shy away from really exploring consciousness in a deep way.
Interesting.
It's often seen as, too subjective or just outside the realm of scientific study.
I guess that makes sense.
But the Spiritual Seek is like diving right into that territory.
So they're not afraid to push those boundaries a little bit.
Not at all. They've designed this test to measure your awareness on this Well, the scale of 0 to 200. There are 7 possible outcomes, and they use that hawk and ant analogy to, illustrate the concept of awareness.
Right, the hawk has that broader perspective while the ant is, well, more focused on those immediate surroundings.
Exactly. And they emphasize that it's not just about what you see literally, but like how you perceive and interpret the world around you.
Okay, so it's about, like, the way you process information, how you make connections.
Right. Are you stuck in that narrow view, or can you see that bigger picture? See how everything's connected?
It makes you wonder if people with, like, different levels of awareness actually experience life in completely different ways.
That's a really interesting point. And, the site claims this test is pretty tough to manipulate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's designed to assess that genuine awareness, not just surface level knowledge or, those socially desirable responses.
Okay, so you can't really fake it.
It's about how you connect the dots, how you see yourself in relation to everything around you.
It's more than just ticking the right boxes.
Exactly.
Now, the spiritual awakening test, that seems pretty closely tied to awareness, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. They describe awakening as this process of, well, expanding consciousness.
Mm.
It's a journey of, transcending the ego and those limitations of the material world.
So it's about recognizing that there's a deeper reality beyond our everyday experience.
Exactly. And, they're really clear that it's a subjective experience unique to each individual.
Right. There's no right or wrong way to awaken.
Exactly. It's not about achieving some specific state or following a prescribed path or anything. It's a personal journey of growth and transformation.
Yeah.
And their test is designed to kind of gauge where you might be on that journey, what stage of awakening you might be experiencing.
It sounds kind of like those maps in fantasy novels, They show you where you are in this vast, uncharted territory.
I like that analogy. It's about orientation, understanding your current position on this much larger map of consciousness.
I like that. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about that great personality test. What sets this one apart?
Well, like we mentioned earlier, they're claiming it's way more sophisticated than your average personality quiz.
Right, it's longer, it's got those 5 nuanced answer choices, and then there's that whole self-calibrating thing.
Exactly.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Like, how does that actually work?
It's a bit like those personalized learning algorithms they use in online education.
Okay, I'm listening.
So the test might start with some general questions, but then based on your answers, it kind of branches out, delves deeper into specific areas, asks more targeted follow-up questions.
So it's constantly adjusting to create a more personalized and accurate profile of your personality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the test is having a dialogue with you rather than just giving you a static set of questions.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, they're pulling from both the Big Five model and the MBTI, so they're aiming for a pretty comprehensive assessment of your personality traits, covering a wide spectrum of characteristics.
Absolutely.
Now on to emotional intelligence. It's become such a buzzword lately.
Well, yeah.
I'm curious to hear how the spiritual seek approaches it.
Well, it's interesting because while they do have a separate logical intelligence test, they actually seem to, critique society's overemphasis on logic and IQ.
Okay, so they're not saying logic is bad, just that maybe we focus on it too much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, they argue that we often neglect emotional intelligence at our own peril.
Right. It's not just about being smart in the traditional sense. It's also about understanding and managing your emotions effectively.
Exactly. And their emotional intelligence test focuses on, those key components like self-awareness.
So how well you understand your own emotions.
Yeah. As well as self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we've all known people who are, brilliant intellectually, but just really struggle with relationships or make those impulsive decisions that sabotage their own success.
Absolutely. And this site suggests that emotional intelligence is crucial not just for your personal well-being, but also for professional success. It can influence your leadership abilities, your teamwork skills, your ability to communicate effectively and resolve conflicts.
It sounds like they're making a case for emotional intelligence being just as important, if not more so, than traditional IQ.
I think they're definitely advocating for a more balanced approach to intelligence. Recognizing that our emotional world plays a significant role in how we navigate life.
Okay, I like that. Now let's talk about those 2 tests that really caught my eye. The youth wisdom test and the mental age test.
Yeah, those are interesting ones.
The idea of a wisdom test, like designed specifically for young people, that's so intriguing. What are they trying to tap into here?
Well, they emphasize that wisdom is different from, knowledge or intelligence. It's not just about what you know, but how you apply that knowledge, how you
Hmm.
understand life, how you make decisions. And they believe that wisdom isn't something you only acquire with age.
Right. Young people are capable of profound insights, too.
Exactly. And get this, they're using this fascinating combination of ancient mythology and artificial intelligence in the test.
Wow, that's a very unique blend. How does that work?
Well, they don't go into a ton of detail, but I'm picturing them using, stories and archetypes from mythology to explore those different aspects of wisdom.
Mm.
And then the AI component might be used to, analyze your responses, tailor the test to your individual thought patterns.
So it's like they're using those ancient stories as a framework for understanding human nature, and then using AI to personalize the experience.
Exactly. It's a really innovative approach.
And then we have the mental age test, which focuses on, well, on your mindset and your attitude towards life.
Right. That idea that your mental age might be different from your chronological age.
Hmm.
You can be, young at heart even in your later years.
What are they hoping to reveal with this test?
It seems like they're trying to get at how you perceive yourself, how you view the world, and how those perceptions, well, shape your experience of life.
It's like they're saying age is just a number. Your mindset is what really determines how young or old you feel.
Exactly. And they make it clear that mental age isn't static. It can be influenced by your experiences, your choices, and your willingness to grow.
It sounds like they're encouraging people to challenge those assumptions about aging and to, recognize that we have more control over our mental and emotional state than we might think.
I think that's a really empowering message.
All right, now we can't forget about that impossible quiz. What's the latest on that?
It's still a bit of a mystery,
Yeah.
but they do reveal a little more about the structure. It's 8 levels of, well, pretty mind-bending puzzles.
So it's not just random trivia or trick questions.
It seems like it's more about, pattern recognition, lateral thinking, problem solving. They want you to really use your brain power to crack the code.
And the prize for conquering this mental Everest is a free personality test.
That's right. A full version of the Great Personality Test. So it's not just about the challenge. There's a reward for those who persevere.
I like that. So far, we've been focusing on the tests themselves, but the Spiritual Seek offers more than just assessments, right?
That's right. They also have a whole collection of articles and resources. They really delve deeper into the concepts that are explored in the tests.
So it's like a complete ecosystem for self-discovery and personal growth.
Exactly. They're not just throwing these tests out there and leaving you to, decipher the results on your own. They want to provide context, guidance, support.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's about that journey.
It sounds like they're building a community of sorts, like a space for people to connect and share their experiences with these concepts.
I think that's a really valuable aspect of what they're doing. It's recognizing that personal growth isn't something we do in isolation.
Mm.
We need connection, support, a sense of shared purpose.
That's a really good point. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the Spiritual Seek.
We have.
But stay tuned for part 3, where we'll, wrap things up with some final thoughts and a provocative question for you to ponder.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring this website, The Spiritual Seek, and I gotta say, it's been a pretty wild ride.
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey.
What really stands out to me is, well, how much they emphasize this idea of self-discovery as an ongoing process.
Right.
It's not like you just take a test and, that's it, case closed. It's not about finding that one label and sticking with it forever.
Exactly. It's about using these tests as a starting point for, deeper exploration and understanding.
Totally agree. It's like they're not just trying to categorize you or put you in a box. They're encouraging you to, ask those tough questions, challenge your assumptions, and just embrace the complexities of your own inner world.
And they're doing it all by, blending traditional psychological assessments with this spiritual lens, which I think is really refreshing.
Yeah, it's not something you see every day.
It's not often you see those two worlds, come together in such a thoughtful and, accessible way.
Yeah, it's like they're acknowledging that we're not just rational beings.
Right.
We've got emotions, intuitions, this deep desire for meaning and connection.
And they're not shying away from tackling some pretty big questions.
Yeah.
Like, what is awareness really? What does it mean to awaken? How can we cultivate wisdom? And not just, as we get older, they're looking at it from all angles.
And they're encouraging us to, consider these questions, not just intellectually, but, experientially,
Mm.
to actually try these tests, reflect on those results, and see how it all connects with our own, with our own lived experiences.
Another thing that really impressed me was, how much they emphasize personal growth.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about understanding yourself. It's about using that understanding to evolve, to become more conscious, more fulfilled as a person.
Right. It's like they're providing tools and resources to support that journey,
Yeah.
encouraging people to take ownership of their own development, create a life that really aligns with, with their values and aspirations.
And they're doing it in a way that just feels, inclusive.
Oh, yeah, totally.
The language they use, the design of the website, it's all very welcoming and approachable. Like, even if you're, totally new to all these concepts.
Yeah. I think that's super important. They're not trying to alienate anyone with jargon or, complex theories. They're meeting people where they are and just inviting them to, embark on this journey at their own pace.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but I feel like we've honestly only scratched the surface of what the Spiritual Seek has to offer.
Yeah, there's so much more to explore.
I'm definitely curious to check out their website and, maybe even try a few of these tests myself.
As we wrap up this episode, I'd like to leave you with a question to ponder. If self-discovery really is an ongoing journey, this process of continuous learning and growth, how can we actually integrate that mindset into our daily lives?
That's a great question. How do we stay curious, open to those new perspectives, even when we're, just caught up in those routines and everyday challenges?
Maybe the Spiritual Seek can offer some guidance on that.
Yeah, maybe some inspiration.
Give us some tools to navigate that journey.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's up to us to, embrace that adventure, see where it leads.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We hope you enjoyed this exploration of the Spiritual Seek. Maybe it even sparked some of your own curiosity.
And inspired you to embark on your own journey.
Until next time, keep exploring.